video you are about to watch was created to educate residents on Montgomery County's practices of remembrance and reconciliation, teaching students of all grade levels local African American history. Thank you, and please enjoy.
Remembrance really begins with truth. It's the truth telling. It's the creating space for us to recognize our history, to understand the events that have occurred. And as it relates to this topic in Montgomery County, the Remembrance and Reconciliation Commission was convened to tell the story of 3 men that were lynched in our county. And so when we think about the remembrance, it's understanding the full and true story of their lives, the events that then ended their lives, and how those activities and terrible, brutal events affect our community all the way to this day. And so together, when you engage in those acts of remembering and truth-telling, it's only then that we can actually move forward into any semblance of reconciliation. I've had the opportunity to work a great deal with the Montgomery County Public Schools Social Studies Department around remembrance and reconciliation. And I'm just so appreciative and excited by the work that MCPS has done in this space. MCPS is one of the ex officio members of the Remembrance and Reconciliation Commission. So the commission is built of half public members who are appointed and half ex officio members that represent the large institutions across the county. Institutions like Montgomery College, Montgomery History, and MCPS is a very important part of the lifeblood of the county, and so they sit on the commission. And one of the things that the commission has wanted is to leave a legacy. How do we not just tell the story of these 3 men? How do we not just engage the community, but how do we ensure that this work actually exists and continues to persist in future generations? And that really has been the mantle that MCPS has picked up.
So Remembrance and Reconciliation Month is a time where in Montgomery County Public Schools, we have all students from kindergarten to 12th grade learning about African American history in Montgomery County. And then we do this throughout from November 1st to the end of the month. We also include a Changemaker workshop where we have local advocates who teach students how to advocate and work for change in their communities or in their schools. But it all is stemmed from learning about how African Americans fought, as well as learning about the inequitable experiences that they had in this county based on their learning. And that learning is basically 5 lessons that students have, and they're grade level specific in the month of November.
One of the best experiences that I had during Remembrance and Reconciliation Month was getting the chance to go into an elementary classroom and seeing some of our learning take place in action. I've been working in the county for going on 14 years, and learning about local Black history that many would consider hard or too challenging for young learners to wrap their minds around is really unique. It's something that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see in a K-3 classroom. And because of our Remembrance and Reconciliation lesson creation, students in 3rd grade and below have been learning about local history, local Black history now in Montgomery County for the last 3 years.
Helps them to, be aware or to know about some of these injustices at a level that I think is, appropriate to them, that they can, when I say appropriate, that they can understand at their cognitive and developmental level, but at the same time, that awareness can help them to be upstanders to injustices. And also it can cause them to come together with their peers to take informed action on any injustices that are taking place in our community.
Teachers have had the opportunity to take, the resources and materials that have been given and elevate them to really meet and match the needs of their students. So one school in particular that I'm thinking of, the teacher had the opportunity for students to have kind of a discussion about, the locations. It was in the first year of implementation, like the locations of all of our historically African American communities existed. And a student, I ended up speaking with a student in the classroom, and she was saying how she shared this information with her grandfather, and that her family uncovered kind of a piece of family history, that they had never knew, that their grandfather actually, or her grandfather actually, participated in sit-ins, and nobody knew that, and it really brought stories and memories and information to life for that family. And I think that, the teacher was able to see that as well. And I think that what it does is it provides teachers an opportunity to make connections with their students that they never realized that existed before. And it allows for teachers to learn about the area in which their school exists in.
One of our first lessons was talking about an experience of a community that happened on River Road in Bethesda, Maryland. And for me personally, I had been to this location many times, but I didn't know the full history of that location. And from the moment in which I learned it to now, every time I go by that particular area, my perspective and understanding of who was there, what had happened, and what were the impacts then and what are the impacts now, I can never see that location without understanding its whole history. And that's really what I hope, and I think we hope, that our remembrance and reconciliation lessons and learning gives to our students and to our teachers, and frankly to our community as well.
Well, I've seen teachers who are learning about this beside their students. I've seen students who are getting really excited about this information and curious. They're asking questions, and they're also seeing that where they live has a history. It's part of what we're learning about.
When I was able to be part of the workshop that took place during the summer, it was a week-long program with students, and the students were able to, travel to some of the places. That it was great for them to hear personally from some of the speakers, from the community activists.
I think the lessons were great because the students were able to see exactly what was happening in this county where they're at least going to school. And so they can have a direct relation to what they're learning to impact them directly with where they are. What have I seen? A little more awareness of what's going on within the county.
I think we were taught RRM because we don't really talk about Black history really in Montgomery County, and it definitely gave us the idea of how did Montgomery County change over time, and how did it get better over time as well. So really teaching us about this really gave us that mindset and that point of view of oh, so we're living in a community which we didn't really know much about, and now we know even more about our Black history as well.
In a school and a community like this that is, again, so diverse, it's important to know that it wasn't always this way, and the differences that have happened, and the changes and the measures that were taken to make these changes possible. It's important to also know where you came from, because a lot of people who have family that have grown up here for years and years and centuries and many generations don't know the true historical impact that happened here.
And so when you actually break this down with students and you actually show them, hey, here's the real history here of people that lived it and these actual experiences that have been kind of left behind of history, as we see textbook companies and the government not wanting to focus as much on what makes them look bad. But if we don't look back and actually understand what that problem was and how that problem got there, not only do we not understand how to fix it, but these problems can recur again and again and again.
I think it's a really good way for the kids to connect with their community and to understand that the history has a real impact in their neighborhoods.
It made me kind of like wake up and realize that I need to go and do something, like create something for the world so that this doesn't happen again.
Students were shocked by a lot of this and surprised. And some of them would talk about people in their family in the past or people who are in their family now who live in other countries who have seen oppression. But the students, they talked to each other about it, and they were, mostly it was surprise, shock. Some of it, that this happened around here, this happened in Maryland.
What stood out to me was that there are still people to this day who remembered all these horrible things that happened to their siblings, to their families, to their parents. Anything, all of this is just stood out to me, and to the fact that this was exactly in Maryland and in Montgomery County.
We play a key role in that we provide opportunities for the community to come and learn about our community of Sandy Spring, which was the first free Black community here in Montgomery County. And as a result, our community not only has the first free group of people in the area, but we also have the oldest church in Montgomery County, and that's Sharp Street United Methodist. We also have some of the earliest schools in the county for Black students, which would be, that was housed at Sharp Street. And so knowing these things, and there were communities like Sandy Spring all over Montgomery County, allows for us to understand the history, understand what people had to do in order to create communities where they could thrive and grow and make sure their kids are educated. In Sandy Spring, we had so many educators, lawyers, and other professionals, business owners and entrepreneurs, because of the early leg up that our ancestors had. And we like to tell those stories because in our history books, sometimes those stories are the ones that are missing.
We wanted to make sure that we had all of the history that we could possibly put together regarding our history, because educating each individual means leadership and growing together. And so what we did was collectively went together and got different communities. And when we did that, we went back to make sure that we knew and understood our history. And that means growth, because if we don't go back and actually learn our history, then we can't move forward and know what it is that we're talking about.
Remembrance and reconciliation to me means that I must be intentional about unearthing stories, lived experiences from people in the past who have been made to feel invisible.
Is an opportunity for social studies to elevate and remember and incorporate untold histories and stories from Montgomery County to students and bring those to life.
Space for us to recognize our history, to understand the events that have occurred.
To me, it means working for change.
We remember the history that had been present and is present, but not present in our schools. So how do we make sure that that history is accessible and available?